Today, we're breaking down decoding Bitcoin terminology, decoding the words that confuse almost every beginner. Simplified. Welcome to Bitcoin Bytes HQ, simple Bitcoin explainers. This is educational content only, not financial advice. Let's go. If you've ever listened to a Bitcoin conversation and felt like everyone was speaking a different language, you're not alone. Words like wallet, hash, multisig, and Taproot get used casually, as if they're obvious. But to a beginner, they can feel technical and intimidating. This happens with every new technology. When people first encountered email or Wi-Fi, the words sounded confusing. Over time, they became familiar tools. Bitcoin works the same way. The terminology can feel confusing until you learn it. Instead of listing random definitions, we're going to organize these terms by what they actually do: wallet words, transaction words, and technical security words. Let's start with wallet words because that's where most confusion begins. A Bitcoin wallet does not actually hold Bitcoin. Bitcoin always lives on the network, a shared public ledger maintained by thousands of independent computers. A wallet manages the keys that allow you to control Bitcoin recorded on that ledger. The most important of those keys is the private key. A private key is a 64-character-long secret number that proves you have permission to move specific Bitcoin. Think of it like a vault key. Whoever has that key can unlock and move the funds connected to it. If someone else gets access, they gain control. Here's where the seed phrase comes in. When you create a wallet, it generates a large random number behind the scenes. That number becomes the root from which all your private keys are mathematically created. Because the number is impossible to remember, the wallet converts it into a list of 12 or 24 simple words. That list is your seed phrase. The seed phrase is the master blueprint that can recreate all your private keys. Think of it like a key factory blueprint. The private keys are the individual keys produced by that factory. The passphrase is an optional extra word or sentence you can add on top of your seed phrase. It acts as an additional backup for your private keys. It increases security, but it also increases responsibility. If you lose it, there is no reset. When you approve a transaction with your wallet, you don't use the seed phrase or private key directly. Instead, the wallet uses your keys in the background and asks you to authorize the transaction, usually with a PIN, password, or biometric confirmation. That step makes it simple for you while keeping the network secure. All of these wallet words revolve around one core idea. Control comes from keys, and the seed phrase and passphrase are the backup that protect them. Now let's move into transaction words, the concepts that explain what happens when Bitcoin moves. When you send Bitcoin, your transaction doesn't confirm instantly. It first enters something called the mempool. The mempool is a waiting room. Transactions sit there until miners include them in a block. Fees act as an incentive for miners to prioritize your transaction. You're not paying a corporation, you're participating in an open marketplace for block space. You'll also hear the word hash. A hash is like a digital fingerprint. Data goes through a mathematical function and produces a unique output. If even one tiny detail changes, the fingerprint changes completely. That's how Bitcoin ensures that past transactions can't be secretly altered. It's similar to sealing a document. If the seal is broken, you know something changed. Another term is UTXO, which stands for Unspent Transaction Output. Instead of tracking balances like a bank account, Bitcoin tracks pieces of value that haven't been spent yet. It's more like using digital cash bills. With this foundation in place, we'll move into the technical security words and network upgrades in the next segment.
The first term to highlight is proof of work, or POW. POW is the system Bitcoin uses to secure the network. Miners compete to solve complex math puzzles that confirm transactions and add blocks to the blockchain. Think of it like a lottery that requires real effort. Only those who solve the puzzle can add a block. This work ensures no one can cheat or rewrite history and gives Bitcoin its security. Another common technical security term is multisig, short for multi-signature. Multisig means that instead of one private key being required to move funds, multiple keys must approve a transaction. For example, 2 out of 3 keys might be needed. It's like a safe that requires 2 people to turn their keys at the same time. This reduces single points of failure and is often used by businesses or long-term holders. Another word you might hear is Taproot. Taproot is a network upgrade that improved how complex transactions are recorded, making them appear more like simple ones. It helps with privacy and efficiency while keeping Bitcoin flexible for advanced use cases. Alongside Taproot, SegWit, or segregated witness, made transactions more efficient and solved signature-related issues. Together, these upgrades improve the system without changing how users interact with it. A saying that beginners often hear is, "Not your keys, not your coins." It means that if you don't control the private keys, you don't truly control the Bitcoin. Self-custody is what ensures you remain in control. We can also revisit UTXO in practice. Your wallet adds the unspent pieces together and shows a total balance, but the network tracks each chunk individually. This explains why miners and POW matter. They confirm each piece is spent only once. A common misconception is that Bitcoin is only for programmers because these words sound technical. That belief is understandable, but most users don't need to understand the deep math. You don't need to know how an engine works to drive a car. You just need to understand the controls and the rules of the road. New terminology can feel confusing until you learn it, just like email, Wi-Fi, or other words you picked up for new technologies. Once you know what each term refers to, the system becomes much less intimidating and easier to navigate. Another misconception is that without a central authority, there must be less security. In reality, decentralization means no single party can rewrite history. Thousands of nodes check the same rules. Combined with proof of work, this makes tampering practically impossible, which is why Bitcoin can be trusted without a bank or government. As adoption grows, from individuals to corporations adding Bitcoin to balance sheets, to ETFs giving traditional investors exposure, and some countries exploring national experiments, the vocabulary becomes more mainstream. Volatility tends to decrease as networks mature and as more participants treat Bitcoin as long-term savings rather than short-term speculation. When you translate the language into everyday ideas, keys, safes, fingerprints, waiting rooms, infrastructure, the system becomes less mysterious. Bitcoin is adopted voluntarily. People choose it when they see benefits in transferring value globally, protecting purchasing power, or holding an asset with fixed supply. That voluntary adoption gives it monetary premium, meaning people value it not just for spending, but for saving. A tiny next step you can take is to explore some of these terms yourself. You can use a Bitcoin glossary, like the one at Bitcoin Magazine, to click through definitions, read examples, and get more familiar with the words. Doing this helps the language start making sense in context. That's Bitcoin terminology, decoding the words that confuse almost every beginner, simplified. If this helped, like, share, and subscribe for more Bitcoin explainers. Drop your biggest takeaway in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next one.